So, in an attempt to control my thoughts here that are already going every which way. So, I really have to get that stand. What did I want to talk to you guys about this week? I want to talk to you because I want to start doing content again, and I would like it to be interactive if possible. I was thinking that I want to start doing lives. I'd like to meet once a week. Let me clarify. And for those who are new here, if you have some of these struggles and you would like to learn more, or you would like to grow a community here, which is what I intended to do when I created this channel, then my own struggles and periodic burnouts, which has taken me away from functioning at work and having to take a leave of absence or take time away from YouTube, has made it really inconsistent for me, and I apologize. Executive functioning is part of this as well. So I had a lot of great plans for what I want to do, and I'm capable. But then things come up, and then the poor working memory. So what are the things that you might struggle with if you have ADHD? I'm writing it down on a pad. You can't see it here because I have to hold the phone. So executive functioning. Executive functioning. I wish I had a dual screen. Has anybody done that on a YouTube channel? Do you need two cameras to do that? So one camera facing what I'm writing so that you guys can see. Let me do this. Let me try something. Hold on. Okay. So I did do this group that I was in. Let me see if I can pan out here. There we go. So, let's try this again. Thank you for bearing with me today. Thank you. My name is Sherry. I love you. I love you all. We're all struggling. You might struggle with something different. You might not have these issues, but everybody struggles with something, and these just happen to be mine, and maybe yours too. So some of the big things that you might want to learn about ADHD is, one, there are actually anatomy and physiology differences in our brains. And this is the neurology. And so this is why it is called, I'm watching myself right through this camera, so it's kind of crooked, neurodivergent. What is it about writing that makes your brain slow down? Neurodivergent. So what does neurodivergent means? Doop-a-doop-a-doop. Brain. Is this a horrible picture of a brain and a brain span? So the brain is neurology, right? And it's different. It just means we're different. So the average brain and the neurodivergent brain basically means that neurologically, all right, has to do with the nerves. It has to do with all of the connections that go on in your brain. So every time like an electric impulse goes from one neuron to another and all of these things happen, you have electrical impulses that are going on, and you have so many different aspects of your brain. Our brains are so complex. You know, you've got the language center, you've got executive functioning. I'm sure there's a part of your brain that's about that. The frontal lobes, let's say the person's face is over here in the front, has to do with attention, sometimes brain, like mood regulation. I'm going to have to pull out, like sometime soon, I'll pull out a map that has like the different areas of the brain, and we can go over what the different parts of the brain do and why these things happen, these issues. But the neurology, and anytime, if you haven't studied anything with medical field, I did go to nursing school. Before nursing school, I took phlebotomy, and I did take a bunch of anatomy and physiology classes. I learned micro. I learned a bunch of cool stuff. And I like to geek out on that stuff. It's been a while since I learned it. But neurology, if you are younger or this is new, basically think of what nerves are, right? And what are nerves? They're basically like the telephone lines. Hello, how are you today? This is going to be a really bad video. That's a horrible telephone. Okay, so all the parts of your brain that talk to one another, right? That's a horrible thing. Anyway, so the first thing that we learned in the group is about how different our brains are wired. Now, how does that happen? You'll hear a lot of talk on the news lately about how they're saying Tylenol causes autism and all of this stuff. And I'm not going to get into the whole Tylenol thing because I don't know what happened. But anyway, our anatomy is different, right, of the brain. So anatomy is how it's built, like all the different parts. Physiology is how it works. How it works. What it is. Right? Now you just learned A and P. So our brains are different. And what are the challenges? And I'm just going to write, thank you for bearing with me for this really horrible hack of a video. ADHD. So, what are the challenges we have? We have, okay, this is where we're getting into the nuts and bolts. Ready? Executive. And my spelling might be off, so I apologize. Dysfunction. I never watch myself writing through a screen. We're going to say spelling because I'm not sure how to spell it right now because I'm tired. So executive dysfunction. Mood regulation. And that's an actual area of the brain that controls that. So this is the frontal lobe. Is it 2 or 1? And I want to say amygdala. And I'm going to say spelling. I'm going to go back. This is just off the top of my head. Mood, but these ones definitely. Executive functioning. This is prioritizing. Sorting. Oh. Then it's planning. So if you can't sort out what's most important, how do you plan what to do first? And that actually is part of what leads to the paralysis. So if you can't plan what's most important, what do you do first? And then not only what do you start with, but then the goals. Steps to get there. So if you can't do these things, how do you accomplish anything? You can't. Meanwhile, you're sitting on your couch and you want to cry because now you're frozen. Because you can't do something that other people do every single day. And sometimes you might be more functional in your life than other times, depending. So let's say you're going through a divorce. Let's say you just got diagnosed with something, or your mom or somebody you love got diagnosed with a serious illness. Let's say you're really, really struggling at your job, and if you keep being late for work, you're going to get fired. High stress. Hello. And when your mood's dysregulated, guess what happens? You can't do any of these things. Your brain will shut off. That's another really interesting thing. So there's actual brain scans that show that. So if they took two different, I remember seeing some brain scans, and some people will say the brain scans are not accurate, but I don't see why they wouldn't be. They had some brain scans of like two different brains, a neurodivergent brain, I think an ADHD brain, and a neurotypical regular person's brain. And if they took a boring or stressful task, you could see the blood flow and the activity in the brains of both of them go down. More so with the ADHD brain, the activity went way down. And then if they added additional stress, yes, the activity went down, but the person with a neurotypical brain could somehow try a little bit harder, focus more, and even though it was challenging, they could do it. Whereas with the ADHD brain, all of a sudden, the brain shut off. So it just stopped working. It's almost like, imagine the spark plug's not working in your car all of a sudden. It just shut off. Like, what are you going to do then? And meanwhile, you got people looking at you like, well, you got to get your stuff together. And you're like, well, my computer just died. I can't think at all. So I don't know how to do that. And you feel insane. So you've got that going on. I'm not really sure what causes that. Executive functioning, mood regulation. What else? The sensation of time, not time management. They call it time blindness, although I hear that the blind community doesn't like that, and I understand why. Although, I will say, if you have time blindness, you can't do anything. You really can't. I can't compare the two. It's not like a physical blindness, but it's severe enough if you have it. Like I have this. I've heard a couple different theories about this. So there's an actual part of your brain. I saw this one woman, I got to find her content about this. She said, I don't remember if it was in the back part of the brain, just like there's this type of condition where there's a part of your brain that recognizes faces. And there are some people's where theirs isn't working right. I think Brad Pitt has this, and I can't remember the name of it, but they call it face blindness. Again, it's not physically blind, but every single person's face physically looks the same to you. So you can't recognize people. So in ADHD, if you have this, because from what I understand, not everybody has this, you might have some issues with time management, which is different because you might get distracted. But this is something different. This is being able to sense the passing of time. Not time management. Although that is also an issue. This is helping me focus. This might be incredibly boring. I don't know. Time management. So if you have something in your brain that's not working, that's broken, like there's no clock ticking. Okay, everybody else can close their eyes, get distracted, do something, and feel 5 minutes went by. They can feel 1 hour went by. If you're like me, 5 minutes, 2 hours, 1 day feels the same. You don't sense it. You don't sense it. There's something different in the brain that senses the passage of time. So you actually physically, I mean, sometimes I can if I'm focusing on the time passing as I'm doing the thing. But then I'm not paying attention to the thing. Does that make sense? I think it only works on things that you don't have to think about, and a lot of things are not automated for us as well. That's a whole nother conversation. So that not time management, they physically feel the same. So I could sit and start working on an issue, and then my fiance might leave and say goodbye. and I sit on the couch and I start working on something on my phone, and then he just like walks right back in, and it feels like 5 minutes, and he'll be like, hey, he'll be home. And I'm like, what is happening? And he'd be like, what did you do? And I feel like he was just gone for 5 minutes, but it was a whole day. You can imagine how maddening that feels. That's what this is. There's an actual word for it, but I don't remember what it's called. So this is not time management, but sometimes some of us have this, and I do. Now you will have both. You'll probably struggle with both. Both will happen at the same time. I mean, if your sense of time is messed up, how do you manage your time? You can't. But if you don't have this issue with time blindness, you can still have time management issues. What affects time management? So what affects it? Sorry for my shaking camera. So let's go over here for a second. Let's look at this. So far we've got what?